or anyone you know ever suffer from an eating disorder like anorexia or bulimia?
No, I haven't known anyone.
No.
Yes. They thought that they were fat when they really weren't.
I know a few people who don't eat for days at a time, but that's about it.
Back in in 6th grade, I didn't totally starve myself, but I was very my portions were very, very small. And I lost a lot of weight, but I'm fine now. I eat whatever I want.
Right here.
Did you?
Yeah. Anorexia. I food too much, and you know what? My metabolism was awesome, so I really didn't need to not eat. And high school just overcame it for me.
A couple of my friends, actually. And it's hard because, it's not really their fault. And usually it's just peer pressure and what people put on you.
I had one when I was in 8th grade because I was the heaviest in my school and stuff, and I just was sick of it. And now I'm healthier and I feel better.
I was really close with this girl who was bulimic, and she'd always eat in school and she'd run to the bathroom, and she was made fun of it a lot.
Yeah, I know people that do. It's really sad.
I've had experiences with friends that did it, but I never have.
I have a friend who suffered from anorexia.
Do you know why they suffer from that? Do you think what made them be anorexic?
It was the competitiveness with a sibling.
According to ANRED, Anorexia Nervosa and Related Eating Disorders Incorporated, more than half of teenage girls are, or think they should be, on a diet.
They want to lose all or some of the 40 pounds that females naturally gain between the ages of 8 and 14.
About 3% of these teens go too far, becoming bulimic or anorexic.
And according to estimates from the National Institute of Mental Health,
as many as 15% of young women adopt unhealthy attitudes and behaviors about food.
Why does our society worship thin bodies, especially in women?
And how can we overcome these false ideals that lead unhealthy lives?
Overcoming eating disorders. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Ian.
And I'm Catherine.
And this is Realfaith TV.
Eating disorders affect both teenage boys and girls. They include
anorexia nervosa, which involves severely limited food intake.
Bulimia nervosa, which involves binge eating, followed by deliberate vomiting.
And compulsive overeating. Often connected to depression, compulsive overeaters binge on food to help them deal with their emotions.
Our spotlight guest today, my good friend Vicky, knows the pain of suffering with an eating disorder.
She is currently in recovery from anorexia nervosa.
We'll meet her later in the program along with our studio guests.
But first, let's go back to the teens on the street and find out why they think so many people suffer from eating disorders.
Let's check it out.
Try to look better for other people. They think people think they're fat or something. They want to look skinny and look good for people.
I think that it's a feeling that you're just not good enough, or that you need to be like someone else and you need to be better.
Probably just, insecure about themselves. They have problems like family.
Because they're unhappy from themselves.
People seem pressured, to be perfect, and some people think they're too fat. They have negative self-image.
Self-conscious and constant drive to have the perfect body.
Because they're depressed and people make fun of them.
I think it's self-esteem. I think it's the pressure that they feel from all their friends.
Pressure.
Definitely the pressure.
Stressed and low self-esteem.
I think it's society and body issues too.
I really do think people are pressured into being thin just because in all of magazines they're all very thin, and then you think you want to look like that and you want to be in that shirt just to look exactly like that. Pressure.
Today it's the in thing to be that skinny.
I think definitely in the world today, everybody is told that the perfect body is the skinny body. Right. Even though a lot of guys are I like a little junk in the trunk or some curves. Girls don't believe that, and girls want to be that skinny model.
Every girl on TV is beautiful. It's so hard. You're eating a piece of pizza and then you see this girl that looks amazing. You're I can never look like her.
I think it's when things that you can't control happen, you try to control something.
There can be many different factors that contribute to eating disorders.
These include biological and psychological factors, genetics, and cultural pressures to be thin.
Every person who struggles with an eating disorder suffers from a deep-seated sense of unworthiness.
The underlying principle at work is, I am only good if I can meet certain standards.
Let's meet our studio guests now and find out what experience they have had with eating disorders.
They are Nicole, Kira, Jessica, Ijama, Vince, and Anthony.
Have you or anyone you know struggled with an eating disorder?
And what pressures do you think contributed to the problem?
When I was a freshman in high school, I almost suffered from an eating disorder. I would not eat, I'd sleep all the time. I tried to eat like as healthy as possible, so I never ate anything that would add fat to my body. And my mom took me to the doctor for a checkup, and she noticed that I had lost 10 pounds within a month from when I had gone to the doctor, and she was nervous that I had an eating disorder, and my mother started crying, so it really affected me because I don't want to see my mom upset.
Like I had, a year or so back, I actually had anorexia, and it was like a really bad thing, you know, it went on for a while. I would first I tried to eat, and then I just totally stopped because I'm a really picky eater to begin with, and I'd sleep all the time, like you said, and then I started eating food and spitting it out just to trick my body into thinking that I was eating. And there are so many pressures. I did it because I was interested in a guy, which is really pathetic. And I really wanted to fit into a size 2, which I am far from now, and still I'm happy with myself. You know, there's a lot of pressures.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I never had an eating disorder really, but for a long time I was focused on looking like Misha Barton. And if you've seen her, she's 6 foot tall and she probably weighs 110 pounds. And I mean, it's really, really difficult to just get up in the morning and go to a school that's filled with beautiful girls. If you walked down the halls of my school, you'd be floored by the people you'd just see walking out of classrooms. So there's a lot of pressure, and people noticed that I had lost a lot of weight last spring when I started to play lacrosse. Because I remember being in the locker room, and someone I'd known since the fall field hockey freshman year, who really knew my body because of the sports and being in the locker room, was just oh my gosh, when did you get so thin? And I was happy to hear her say that.
I know this girl who had bulimia actually, and she did some modeling for certain things and she also, Misha Barton and everyone on the OC, she was addicted, and she would watch it and just watch them because she wanted to look exactly like them. It was awful.
Yeah. I actually have a friend who is still suffering from anorexia and bulimia, and it's been going on for about a year now, and she had gotten help for it a while back, and then she stopped getting help for it because her parents thought she was over it, but it continued, and that's when she developed bulimia. And then she started this modeling thing, which made it even worse because her coach would always tell her she's fat. So it wasn't until I started threatening to tell her parents and to tell the guidance counselors that she actually did something about it and went to her parents and actually admitted to her, and now she's getting help for it.
Yeah, similar to Jess and Nicole, I didn't have an eating disorder, but there were times when I wouldn't eat anything, I slept a lot and tried to lose weight a lot, but I didn't really have anorexia or bulimia or anything.
Well, Vicky is one of my absolute best friends, and I watched her go through probably the hardest thing she's ever had to deal with. It's remarkable that this is just so common. According to a Harvard Medical School study in 1995, before television came to their island, the people of Fiji thought the ideal body was round, plump, and soft.
Then, after 38 months of Melrose Place, Beverly Hills 90210, and similar Western shows, teenage Fijian girls showed serious signs of eating disorders.
There's no doubt that the media provides unrealistic examples of what the average person looks like.
Many teenagers buy into this ideal, and what starts off as a sensible diet turns into an eating disorder.
This is what happened to our Spotlight guest, Vicky.
Let's hear her story now.
People would tell me that I'm fat. Some people told my boyfriend to break up with me because I was heavy. And that was just really hurtful to know that they would discriminate against me for just my physical appearance. Someone told me that I could be pretty if I lost weight. And I started losing weight at a normal pace, and then I just got more conscious, I guess, of what I was putting in my mouth. And so I just keep restricting myself and cutting back. And then it just went out of hand. I was eating probably not even 200 calories a day and burning them all off by exercising. I went from about the size I am now in about 6 or 7 months, down to 90 pounds. A size 0 was falling off me. It was on my mind all the time. Every day I'd wake up and every night I'd just think constantly like what I was gonna eat the next day. I remember calling my boyfriend every single night and telling him exactly how much I ate and exactly how much I burned off and exactly how much I lost. And every time he'd say, Vicky, I do not care. I know what you're doing. Please don't hurt yourself. Please stop. And he'd beg me to stop, and I would just deny it and deny it and deny it. And I just put on like a mask so people would think that I'm okay when I really wasn't.
Isn't that insane? That's what I was saying before. How beautiful is she? I mean, you just said that.
Yeah,
you made a comment like.
She's gorgeous.
I know, and she felt like she wasn't good enough.
That's terrible. That's like so many people just think that they're not good enough when really they're better than good enough, and they're just trying to like get even farther. But if they're just themselves, that'll pay off more.
I think it has a lot to do with the media. Not even the media. It could be on a smaller scale in schools and stuff. Like, I went through being picked on from kindergarten to 5th grade, and in that time, I wasn't really sure how to deal with it. Around 5th, 6th grade, I got a reality check thinking, all these things that they're calling me, because me being one of the biggest people in my class at the time, there'd be people of my size, but usually the bullies, as you grow up, you think, oh my goodness, they're like 2 feet tall, or, they're stick thin. I could, easily defend myself against them. And it doesn't dawn on you until you mature. So I can see how she let the pressures of other people get to her, because I went through that kind of ordeal myself. As I got older, it dawned on me that you can't take it to heart. You can't have what they say get to you. You're you. Take that as you have.
You're really lucky you knew that from the get-go.
Yeah.
Trying to get help for someone suffering from an eating disorder can be incredibly difficult.
Many times they're in denial.
In addition to this, starvation, chronic dieting, binge eating, and purging can upset nerve impulses and brain chemistry, impairing the very centers needed to make healthy choices.
Vicky had so many friends who stood by her and tried to help her, as well as her family.
It was finally something that her sister Kara said to her that made her realize she needed to get help.
My friends were there for me regardless of anything that I did, but they knew what I was doing to myself, so I don't think they really gave me compliments so much because they'd think that would encourage me, because I was so self-involved that I just didn't have time for anyone. The relationship with my family, I would yell at them all the time about any little thing that they did, and although they were trying to help me, I would just scream at them for no reason. I was on edge the whole time. My now ex-boyfriend, I treated him in a way that no one should be treated. I would act fine around other people, and then I'd just take everything out on him, and he didn't deserve that. For the longest time, I denied it. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. My people would tell me, Vicky, you have to start eating, you have to do this, you have to do that. The first person that actually confronted me about it was my ex-boyfriend. He told me, Vicky, I know what you're doing, and do not let this get out of hand. And I still denied it and said nothing was wrong with me. And then one day my mom just flat out told me, you're anorexic. And I got so mad at her, and I remember writing in my journal that I can't believe what my mom thinks of me. She's so wrong. And then my sister came in my room one night and she told me, she told me, Vicky, I'm not gonna watch you kill yourself, that you need help. So after that, I decided to tell my parents that I really do need help.
Thank God her sister really got through to her. What was it that helped you or your friends know that they needed help to solve an eating disorder?
Well, when I saw my mom crying in the doctor's office, I really knew that I needed help, and it took a lot for me to realize, because like Vicky said, you don't want to admit it, you don't realize that it's really happening to you until something drastic happens.
I actually remember one specific time when I was talking to that girl I was talking about before, and I was telling her how ridiculous she was for even thinking that she was overweight, and just, it was unbelievable. When she responded to me, she said, why would I stop doing this if I know it's going to make me perfect? And that's when I knew she was really, really deep into the disease. And it's scary to think that that's exactly how they consider the disease, and it's incredibly hard to overcome that.
I had a friend, and it was the day we saw Dr. Mikey, who dresses up in different roles as characters of students or people that have certain problems, and one of them he did was a girl who had an eating disorder. And my friend, when he started talking, she just started bawling, and that day in class we were just reflecting on what we saw, and that's what made her realize she needs to get help.
Well, I think like the most important thing is getting the person to realize. Like for me, I was in denial for the longest time. Like I talked to my counselor, talked to my parents, and once they were watching what I eat, I like threw it up because I didn't want to stop. Like I was scared of gaining weight again. So like what finally made me realize was the boy I was actually trying to impress like came up to me and he's like, "You're not being smart. Like if you want to lose weight or something, run, jog, you have to be careful because you're a really good friend to me and I don't need to lose you." Like you just got to talk to the person.
Anorexia nervosa has one of the highest rates of mortality for any psychiatric condition.
Also, according to ANRED, without treatment, up to 20% of people with serious eating disorders die.
But with treatment, about 60% recover.
Vicky's anorexia was life-threatening and led to a clinical depression.
Next, she talks about the lowest point in her illness and how she managed to physically recover from anorexia.
I shot my metabolism. It's very slow now. I was cold all the time. I remember coming to school. I had 3 pairs of socks on a day. I had like leggings. I had sweatpants underneath my school clothes to keep me warm, and I was still freezing all the time. Anyone that even touched me, I'd bruise. My skin got very, very dry, and it had like a green look to it. I just like run my fingers through my hair and a whole chunk of hair would fall out. At a point in time, it was hard for me to even walk up the steps because I'd feel fatigue in my muscles. From starving yourself, the muscle that you have in your body and the muscle that I built up through exercising was being eaten away. And so I had no muscle mass whatsoever. And when I'd like sit on a chair, I'd feel my backbones like digging into the chair. And when people would hug me, they'd feel my shoulders and like my ribs and stuff. I got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I was depressed and I wouldn't smile. I wasn't myself. I wasn't talking to anyone. I remember telling my mom that I wanted to kill myself because I hated myself so much for doing this to everyone and myself. And so I was prescribed to medication, and that helped me to get my mind off of thinking about food constantly. It gave me more confidence and helped me talk to people more. And everyone noticed a change in me. And then I started seeing a physician and a nutritionist and then another psychiatrist. But the most encouragement was probably when I'd eat something like normal, like a cookie or something, and I'd get like encouragement from my family and friends. And like when I started gaining weight back, they knew that I had control of myself. Even though I'm physically recovered from an eating disorder, I still mentally have issues with myself, like any young person does. They want to always change something, make something better, they want more. But I'm learning to deal with myself and love myself.
My friendship with Vicky has taught me so much about valuing people, because I remember when she was talking about her muscles, I remember she came online one day and said, "Oh, I don't feel good, my heart hurts." And I was crushed because I knew how important it was to keep your muscles okay when you're having an eating disorder. That's when you know you're really in trouble, when your body has nothing else to eat, and your heart's the most important muscle of your body. But then I also remember sitting at our lunch table and seeing her eat like a salad. And one day she didn't pick up the fat-free dressing, and I remember how happy I was that she was willing to just have something with like milk in it. And it's remarkable what you can learn about people through these kind of things.
Yeah, and I also admire her for the fact that, you know, even though her friends and her family, even though they meant, you know, like they were helping her out and always telling her like, you need to eat, you need to do this, it's still a lot to hear from everybody telling you what to do, even if it is, you know, for good purposes. So I think it was really great how she just, you know, she allowed them to help her, and she actually took their advice and did, you know, she got better.
It's like really hard to get help. Like me, I'm like a really proud person. So like you have to help the person, you know? You have to help them out.
In her song Beautiful, Bethany Dillon sings to God.
You make me beautiful, you make me stand in awe.
You step inside my heart and I am amazed.
I love to hear you say, who I am is quite enough.
You make me worthy of love and beautiful.
It would be great if we could all see ourselves this way and believe that we are beautiful simply because God made us.
Vicky was able to get on the path of recovery with the help of her loving family and friends.
And the loving presence of God in her life.
Next, Vicky tells us how she feels so many teenagers suffer from eating disorders that it's become an epidemic.
She also shares how God and prayer helped her get through.
It's a mental battle, not only physical. And it comes to a point where you, in your mind, you just can't eat because you've restricted yourself and held yourself back, that your mind won't let you. More people than you would think have suffered or still do suffer from an eating disorder. Through my experience, people have found that it's easy to come and talk to me when they're going through something like that, because I've been through it. And although physically people might not look ill, they are, and it's honestly an epidemic. Like, more people than you'd ever think undergo some kind of eating disorder one time or another. Prayer helped me because I felt like everyone that I talked to had something to say to me, either a negative comment or some kind of advice. And I felt like talking to God, He would just be listening to me and wouldn't have anything to say back to me except to just help me through it. Through that time, it was the most I've ever went to church, and I remember praying every single night for my family and friends to thank God that I had them in my life. And I asked for His forgiveness every single night, that He'd help me through it, and I'm sorry for treating myself this way and for everyone around me. And you just have to make sure that the people around you love you, because they don't care what size you are, and they love you regardless. I just want to thank all my friends and family that were with me through it all, because I took them all for granted, and I didn't realize till now how much they all love me.
I guess when times are that difficult, probably your best bet is to turn to God. I'm tearing up. I know her so well, and it just feels so good to hear her say that prayer helped.
And it's always good to know that someone's there to lean on. It's really important to try and reach out to a friend who you may think is suffering from an eating disorder.
Try to encourage them to get help and to tell a family member.
Next, our Teens on the Street give some advice on how to help a friend who is suffering from an eating disorder.
They should go see a professional about it, because, you know, I'm not a psychologist. I don't really understand the intricacies of it.
To get help, I mean, sometimes it's like you can't help it. It's just the way your mind works, and you need help, psychological help.
Make sure they know that you're there for them, then it could help them.
But I mean, you can't really tell them to eat, or just tell them that they are beautiful.
I think definitely talking to their people around them and letting them know what's up, and I don't know, rehab helps or counseling.
What other advice do you guys have for a friend who could be suffering with an eating disorder?
And how do you believe God can help someone?
I think talking about it, not bottling it up, talking to your friends, and obviously getting counseling for it. And I believe that prayer could help you. Seeking out advice from God, in some way or form, He will help you.
Reassuring your friend that they are good the way they are and they don't need to change anything to like prove anything to anybody else.
My one friend, he was telling me about his struggle with anorexia, and he said the thing that helped him overcome it the most was just talking about it. He tells anyone who will listen because he feels that's the biggest hurdle you have to get over.
I think being able to admit it and realizing that you do have a problem is probably the best thing, and then after that you can tell a trusted friend or an adult and they can help you out.
Yeah, and you got to remember that, you know, some people don't want to talk to anybody about it. Some people actually do bottle it up, and you trying your best not to pry into their lives, but you know, you got to just spend time with them until they can trust you enough.
And whenever there's no one else around to talk to, and you don't have like a physical person in front of you, you can always talk to God, and He's always there to listen. You can always talk to Him whenever you want.
Those who struggle with eating disorders are called to set their eyes on a vision of the future.
A future that is full of hope and based on the truth about ourselves that we can learn from God rather than the world's false expectations.
Jesus walks beside us in our struggles and understands our pain.
We need not be afraid, for as St. Paul wrote, in our weakness,
God will be our strength.
Can you share your path of recovery from an eating disorder?
We'd love to post your story on our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
We leave you now with these words from Isaiah chapter 43.
Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine.
Remember that we all belong to God.
And as Vicky said, God loves us no matter what size we are.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Realfaith TV. God bless.